Watch. The lighthouse at Marconi Point hadn't worked in 30 years. Just a stone tower on the edge of a cliff. No tourists, just a mark on the map. No more. Everything changed when the park logbook got a message from kayakers. Last night, someone lit a light in the lantern room. Not a steady beam from the old automatics, but fractured, erratic flashes, almost like a signal. Ranger Alana Reed, the best on this coast, the one everyone called when storms rolled in or tourists vanished in the fog, took the service boat to check. She never came back on the radio. By next day, the search team landed on the island and found the impossible. The heavy oak door of the lighthouse was locked from the inside with antique brass bolts, unused for 30 years. From that moment, questions began to outweigh answers. Everyone on the Acadia coast knew Alana Reed's name. 37 years old, almost 10 in the Marine Patrol. Not the soul of the party. A bit closed off, maybe even a loner. But when the sea boiled or the rocks swallowed a tourist, hers was the first name on every radio. She grew up here in a fisher family, knew every current, every reef, every hidden cove, missed by modern GPS. The ocean was her element. Colleagues respected her for professionalism and her quiet, steady courage. Not one for many words, but she always made it home. Until that day. Her last login was the evening of October 11th. She hadn't logged her departure, left no route, only told her relief at the dock. If that light's really back on, best I check myself. It's my patch. The alarm was sounded next morning. In the sign-out book by Alana's name, a blank line, which itself was an anomaly. She always logged her trips, even just for a half-hour net check. Name, boat number, weather, routine for her. The last sighting, she came in focused as usual in her storm suit, not with a navigation tablet, but an old nautical chart in a plastic tube. She said she was going to check on the Marconi Point light. A random kayaker's note about strange flashes in the lantern room had triggered it. A reflection? An error? Maybe. But with Alana missing and a weird signal on Delta 4, the old lighthouse became searchers' first stop. But her service boat, the Seawolf, wasn't at the main island pier near the light. It was carefully anchored in a narrow, almost hidden cove half a kilometer south, an inlet shunned for its reefs, marked as dangerous on every chart. The doors to the cockpit were closed but not locked. Inside, perfect order. Thermos of cold tea, ship's log open to a blank page, all equipment intact, except for one missing item, her personal portable sonar, a handheld device she used for mapping tricky seabeds. Surveillance at the harbor caught her leaving alone the previous evening. Chart in the tube beside her, flashlight, and the missing sonar. Marconi Point Lighthouse, built at the century's end, automated in the 1990s. Just scenery since then. The team found it as expected, a gray stone tower, lichened, salt-streaked, bleached from wind. But one thing stood out, that heavy oak door, not locked with a rusty padlock anyone could shear, but barred from the inside with weighty brass bolts unused for decades. Whoever closed them had to do it from inside, and there was no way round. The lighthouse perched over unclimbable cliff. In the crusted salt on the lantern room glass, someone's finger had drawn two letters, one number, SS1012. The handwriting was clear. The date matched perfectly with Alana's disappearance. When the search coordinator opened the lighthouse's technical records, one thing leapt out. The last official inspection, 1997. It was noted, structure deemed stable, staff access restricted, entry sealed. After that, a blank. No requests, no assignments. Physically, the lighthouse stood tall, but on paper, it became a ghost facility, a relic with history, but no function. A dead zone, not dangerous, just forgotten by time. No one in the current staff had ever climbed to the top. The need was gone. Lights ran on automatic, solar-powered. Only a steady white beam was supposed to cut the night. Never flicker in jagged, coded bursts, as the kayaker claimed. While one group labored to open the lighthouse, another scouted the cove, where Alana's boat had anchored. On the old military map found in the cockpit, that cove was marked as Point B. At the water's edge, hidden by rock, they found an entrance to a sea cave. Inside, the walls still bore remnants of rusty brackets, and, deeper, a half-submerged concrete pier. Ruins of a Cold War base, with no civilian record. At the cave mouth, caught on a jagged stone, they found a scrap of dark blue cloth. It was a collar fragment from a Navy uniform, the style worn by fleet crews in the 1970s. The implication was clear. Someone dressed like that had passed here recently. Otherwise, salt and wind would have dissolved the fragment long ago. The scrap was sent for forensic testing. The first report matched expectations. Fiber and dye fully matched U.S. Navy standard uniform, model year 1972. A remarkable find, direct evidence tying the lighthouse and Alana's vanishing to the military's shadowed past. Everyone believed she'd stumbled onto some buried secret and paid the price. But the second laboratory report, arriving 2 days later, destroyed that version. Tests on trace epithelial cells from inside the collar showed the DNA was not Alana's, and it didn't match any ranger staff or registered locals. It was someone completely unknown. The clue that seemed key turned out to be a trap, leading the investigation astray. It wasn't her uniform, not her trail. A search of her small coastal cabin revealed little, but added details to her portrait. The space was ascetic, methodically neat. A table, a bunk, shelves lined with books on oceanography and biology. Pinned to a wall, old nautical maps of the coast. The island's surroundings peppered with pencil marks, dates, moon phases, depths, and strange symbols resembling spirals. On the table lay an open book, Local Marine Legends. The page marked at the chapter titled The Wandering Light of Marconi. The legend told of a ghost ship that appeared in the fog near the island, luring vessels onto the reefs with its lantern. Folklore, yes, but Alana, a scientist, highlighted several paragraphs with a marker. Her personal ship's log was found in the boat, mostly standard entries: water temperature, bird migrations, shoreline status, dry, businesslike. Closer to her disappearance, notes appeared outside official reporting, the rhythm of a sonar signal. 3 short pings, 1 long. Sounds like an echo, but no source, as if the water itself answered. The lighthouse light went out for exactly 2 seconds at midnight. Automation doesn't fail that way. If someone was tracking her on the water, how did they know when she'd slow down? No radar trace, but a feeling of presence, always on the return trip. Her final note was undated, written at an angle that suggested urgency. If I don't return, don't look by the lighthouse. Look where the map shows no bottom. On day 3 of the search, while combing the island's main pier, a volunteer found a shard of thick, fluted glass among the rocks. It was clearly from a large ship's lantern. A straightforward theory surfaced. Perhaps Alana's boat collided with another vessel at night. Her lantern broke. A tragedy followed. The shards were collected, cataloged, sent to a lab. Everything seemed to fit the chain of an accident, but the next morning the report arrived. The chemical composition and glass casting method did not match Alana's lantern. It matched kerosene lanterns used on mid-20th century lighthouses. Another ghost from the past. The shard wasn't from her boat, just similar, just nearby. Another step forward and a step back. On day 4, the sea washed up a radio on the beach, half buried in sand. The casing was scratched but waterproof. Model matched Alana's. Technicians turned it on. Battery almost dead, a single damaged audio file saved. The recording began with silence, then faint shuffling, like the radio hitting against a waterproof jacket. Seconds later, a short breath and a voice resembling hers, standing on the pier. The clip lasted 4 seconds. Then a click, cut off. Tone not panic, but clearly tense. The first direct clue, a voice record. The team thought it was her radio, switched on by herself. But detailed lab analysis revealed discordance. The device did not transmit to the outside. The channel was open, but the signal came in, meaning the radio wasn't sending, it was receiving. The microphone was live, but only recorded what came from the speaker. Technically, this meant one thing. Someone spoke on the same frequency from another device, and Alana's radio caught and recorded it. It was either not her voice, or she used another radio to transmit, or someone deliberately imitated her voice. Moreover, the background noise indicated a confined space with metal walls, not an open pier. The radio clue turned into a setup. The search stalled. The main lighthouse entrance was sealed from the inside, but one of the old engineers who worked the coast in the 80s remembered a secret secondary entrance. Beneath the lighthouse foundation was a huge rainwater tank connected to the sea by a technical tunnel to drain excess water. The tunnel's mouth lay right at the waterline, visible only at extremely low tide. Maps marked it sealed and welded shut, but the team found the thick steel grate at the entrance had been cut. Fresh boot prints traced the wet ground. A question hung in the air. If the main door was nailed from inside, could someone enter or escape through the bottom? The tunnel led the team inside. The first thing that struck them: the lighthouse was unnervingly clean, the floor dry, nearly dustless, impossible for an abandoned seaside building. On the spiral staircase to the lantern room, 2 parallel grooves marked the old paint, as if something heavy was dragged upward. Near one groove, an imprint shaped like an elbow's contour. Fresh. On the lantern room wall, under the window, someone had carved with a sharp tool. The letters, partially obscured, could be initials. The inscription didn't look like vandalism. It seemed desperate, as if whoever came was searching and did not find what they expected. The initials and the date, 1012, etched on the glass, prompted archivists to search old ship logs and keeper reports. What they found was shocking. The initials and birth date matched Elias Crow. Elia Crow, the last lighthouse keeper, who vanished without a trace under mysterious circumstances in October 1972. His disappearance was never solved. The official story claimed he was swept away by a wave during a storm. But the date, October 12th, was also the day Alana disappeared. Someone, Alana herself or another, left the signature of a man gone a decade earlier on the glass the very day a new soul vanished. A link spanning 50 years was undeniable. This connection to the 1972 disappearance opened access to formerly classified naval archives. They revealed Marconi Point Lighthouse was cover for Project Siren, a network of secret underwater acoustic sensors tracking Soviet submarines. The project was terminated in the late 80s. A 1984 report mentioned a footnote: if acoustic phantoms or duplicate signals are detected, activate the backup station and switch to the internal silence protocol. Place the lighthouse in reserve. Mark location. Do not disclose coordinates. What internal silence was, or what acoustic phantoms meant, the papers did not say. Yet one thing was clear: the military knew about this anomaly decades ago and chose to conceal it rather than study it. Exactly 7 days after the first signal on frequency Delta 4 at high tide, it repeated. The same humming drone, the same hoarse breath, the same words: back. It's not a boat. The intonation, rhythm, and pauses matched to the 100th of a second. Yet technicians noticed something new. The latest recording was crystal clear, without analog noise or interference, as though the same file had been played again, this time digitally. Waveform comparison showed a 98% match. Small amplitude differences suggested not a copy, but a replay. Either someone was playing the old recordings or, and this was most frightening, the event that created the recording was happening again. A communications expert called it a looped signal. The question remains unanswered. Did the recording repeat, or was it replayed? When technicians had almost given up, they recovered one last damaged file from the hard drive of Alana's boat computer. Most data had been erased, but a fragment of a text log survived. in handwriting not hers, an automatic system journal tracking her device data. The final lines read, 2347 acoustic request, 2348 response received, source unidentified. Signature does not match biological or mechanical objects. 2349 repeat request, 2350 duplicate reply, signal received. Warning, signal is own echo with 2-minute delay. Impossible. And the last handwritten entry, the light is not a warning, it is a call. If I don't surface, do not touch the tank. The echo is deeper. Alana Reed was never found. The search was suspended. 1 month later, a new motion sensor camera was installed to monitor the island. For weeks it captured only tea and fog. Until one stormy night, exactly at 4:17 a.m., it recorded a flash of light. The beacon flared once, but irregularly, like a complicated Morse code signal. Immediately, the camera's power surged and recording cut out. So ask yourself, do you believe this was just an accident? Or had Alana, like the keeper before her, become part of an anomaly that repeats for decades, whose signal, like an echo, still rings clear in the dead silence? Thank you for watching. Stay aware. Some mysteries refuse to fade away, and some calls can never be ignored.